On June 28th of 2017, Mark McGreevy of the Famvin Homeless Alliance addressed a gathering at the European Parliament to honor the 400th anniversary of the Vincentian family. Here in its entirety is Mark's address, courtesy of the Congregation of the Mission.
So many inspirational speakers, but I'll give it a try. President Tajani, members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, Vincentian brothers and sisters, thank you for this invitation to speak at this event to mark the 400th anniversary of the birth of the Vincentian charism. And as President Tajani mentioned, this charism is best summed up in the story of the poor and alien family in the parish of Châtillon, France, where Vincent was serving as the parish priest. The family were too sick to work or even leave their house, and Vincent realised that if they were going to survive, that they needed material aid, they needed food, they needed water, they needed nursing care. And whilst celebrating Mass, he implored his congregation to help. Later on that same day, he went to visit the family with bread, with cheese, and with milk. And on the way, Vincent met many of his parishioners who responded to his plea for help, and they were also carrying food and drink for the family. Vincent could see that there was too much food being provided at one time, that the bread would go stale, that the milk would turn sour. There was no plan to even out the supply over the coming days and weeks. And it was at this point that Vincent realised that there was great charity, but that needed to be properly organised if it was to be effective. He said, it's not enough to do good, we must do it well. And so the Vincentian charism to encourage and organise charity was born. From that point on, Vincent devoted himself to the organisation of charity, beginning in France, before spreading out across Europe and then around the world. He would have had no idea at all how such a simple concept 400 years ago would in time grow into an international movement of over 2 million people, incorporating over 250 religious and lay organisations who claim Vincent as their founder and the organisation of charity as their mission. Nor would Vincent have guessed at the size and scale of the works of charity currently being undertaken by the Vincentian family globally, serving millions of the world's poorest of the poor. Many of these people that the Vincentian family help around the world fall into a broad definition of being homeless, whether physically living on the streets or in shelters, whether they are refugees, asylum seekers, internally displaced people, or those living in temporary settlements such as slums and favelas. In its most recent report on the issue, the UN Settlements Agency estimated that over 1.2 billion of the 7 billion people on this planet are homeless in one form or another, and that most likely that's going to grow as a result of poverty, of economic downturns, of conflict, of natural disaster and urbanisation. Just a few examples. There are 65 million refugees globally at the moment, the highest level ever recorded. There are 863 million men, women and children living in slums and favelas across the world. In 1950, only 746 million people lived in our cities. That grew to 3.9 billion in 2014 and will reach 6.4 billion in 2050, placing incredible pressure on housing and services as this urbanisation gathers pace, and we need to plan for this. There are rising numbers of street homeless here in Europe and across the world. I travel a lot around our European capitals, and in most capitals I go to, it's got worse, not better, in the last 10 to 12 years. Although the Vincentian family is doing a lot to help refugees, slum dwellers and street homeless people, we believe we can do more. We believe that people continue to be naturally charitable and will respond if asked to do something. We believe it is still our Vincentian mission to help organise that charity so that it is effective and sustainable, and to that end we will commit as much resource as we can. So with that in mind, I'm delighted to announce today the creation of the Famvin Homeless Alliance, a new Vincentian family global project to serve homeless people as part of our celebration to mark the 400th anniversary of the birth of our charity. And in very brief summary, the aims of the initiative are as follows. To make a real and sustainable difference to the lives of hundreds of thousands of homeless people globally by developing new services for refugees, for slum dwellers, for homeless people. To network Vincentian groups working across the spectrum of homelessness globally. To support and develop existing and emerging leaders in homelessness across the globe. To share best practice and research and effective models of what works. To lobby for structural change in support of homeless people at national, regional and global level, including here at the EU. Believe you, I'll be back many times to talk to people here. And with the help of the Institute of Global Homelessness in Chicago, we intend to end street homelessness in 150 cities around the world by 2030, in collaboration with other partners and with government agencies. We've just announced our first 10 pilot cities in that regard. The Vincentian family has asked the charity that I work for, DePaul International, to coordinate this work on behalf of the Vincentian family. DePaul International works in several European states, the UK, in Ireland, in France, Slovakia, Croatia, and in Ukraine, where we work with over 22,000 homeless people. And I welcome connections with any parliamentarians in the audience today from those countries, and indeed all countries where the Vincentian family is present. We need your help and we need your support to grow this mission and end the structural injustice and personal tragedy which is homelessness. I've got a particular message, if you don't mind, for the parliamentarians in the audience today. The EU, to its enormous credit, was instrumental in shaping the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals to be delivered by 2030. And of these 17 goals, 3 in particular stand out to me as being relevant as to why we should all be committed to end homelessness. Firstly is SDG 1, eradicating poverty in all of its forms. Now, admittedly, global poverty can be seen as a relative debate, but surely here in a rich continent like Europe, eradicating poverty means that we should see an end to people living on our streets or in temporary shelters. This isn't a matter of charity, this is a matter of justice. The second SDG is SDG 3, ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all at all ages. In my view, housing is a social determinant of health, and there's overwhelming evidence that homelessness is associated with ill health. In fact, it dramatically lowers the life expectancy of those who live on the streets. We need to do better for homeless people in this regard. And thirdly, finally, SDG 11, making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. This goal includes providing safe, adequate housing for all. Surely by definition, this includes preventing and addressing homelessness. We are glad that the EU has been at the forefront of creating these SDGs and are committed to these goals. And as the elected representatives in this room, we hope that you hold the Commission to account to see that we deliver this for homeless people. That's enough of my politics for now. Finally, from me, I note from its website that among the European Union's fundamental values are respect for human dignity, the defence of human rights, the promotion of equality and the well-being of every citizen. So in short, that everybody is treated fairly. And those values underpin a worldview that was shared by Vincent de Paul and continues to be shared by the 2 million members of the Vincentian family globally. We want to be partners with you in the EU in your mission to make those values come alive for homeless people. Vincent was a bridge between the powerful and the powerless, between the rich and the poor, between ideas and action. And I hope together we can build bridges to ensure everyone in Europe, indeed everybody in the world, has a place they can call home and a stay in their community. Thank you.